Good morning. I'm here with Dr. Ari Luder. This is the Cup of Joe podcast. I'm your host, Joe Hellerstein. Um, Dr. Ari Luder is a urologist at Sheba Hospital. Correct me if I say anything not correct, but he's also an officer in the IDF, completed a course to combat terrorism, serves as a doctor in miluim. On October 7th, Ari was rushed to the front line to the kibbutzim in Otef Aza, including Kibbutz Be'eri, where he spent several hours nonstop treating victims while under constant fire. And Ari has graciously agreed to tell his story. So welcome to Cup of Joe.
Good morning, Joe.
Let's start with how you decided to become a doctor.
Okay.
When did you first decide to become a doctor and why?
Okay, so first and foremost, before I answer your question, just ironically, as we talk, today is the 7th of May, and it's 10 o'clock. And all this story started at the 7th on October. So we're talking about the 7th of October, 7th of May, 10 o'clock, 10 October. It's just ironically a small thing I noticed.
I'll just mention that currently our IDF is operating within Rafiach, and our thoughts and prayers are with them, and we hope for their success. So let's mention that now. It's important to keep in mind.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So how I became a doctor? Well, I have to say that my family, a lot of them were doctors. My father, my grandfather, my other grandfather, my uncle. And it's kind of a thing that kind of sinked in maybe subconsciously when I was maybe a child. But
where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rosh Pina. Rosh Pina is a small, well, I wouldn't say even a town. It's up in the north of Israel. I grew up there.
Beautiful there.
Yeah. And the north now is also currently suffering very much, which makes me a lot of distress as well. Becoming a doctor wasn't something I knew straight away at all. When I traveled around the world after my compulsory service, I traveled around Australia, New Zealand, a bit in the Far East. I had an incident. I went out with a girl, got ill when I was going out with her, and her English wasn't as good as mine, as we were like in Australia, and she was admitted, and I went her through all the whole process. Anyway, she had like a kidney disease, and I found myself very interested in first in all the help around it and the medical things that she had to deal with. And I thought maybe this is something I need to do, and because I thought until then I'll be maybe a vet, because my background in the army, I worked with dogs, and I did that also after the army.
That's what you did in your compulsory, in your army service?
I was a dog handler. There's another special unit in the army.
Canine unit.
The canine unit called Alcats. I was a dog handler there, an instructor, and then later on I worked with dogs in London and Australia. But that's the shift point.
Is that as a combat soldier, you right away went into that unit, or what's the process?
Well, when you're 18, I grew up in an area where a lot of young guys want to go in to be in the special units, special forces. And those are one of the units of the special forces, and there's something called a tryout. Like you have to go for a few days, intense physical activities, a few mental activities to kind of see if you're suitable to handle that kind of stress. And they pick about 27 out of 500 to each unit, and I was picked out, and that's how I got in.
Yeah, and that's after basic training?
Yeah, well, you do basic training as a team, and you grow up, and then you go into the unit, and then you do your special training of the unit within like a different place. That's how a lot of units usually have their training program.
So you finished your army service and you go on this trip to the Far East, and you meet this girl. you take her through the medical process when she has an issue, and you decide this is for me. I want to go into this field.
Yeah, I mean, I was about 23, come about 24, and decide what I want to do with with my life. And I thought that's probably I'll probably be good at it. I think up till now I'm pretty good. I think, and the attitude, and the background, and having the self-discipline to study, and
So you applied to medical school, and what school did you end up going to?
So I came back here, I studied in Tel Aviv, did a first degree, then I finished my medical training in Bar Ilan University in Tzfat, and then became a doctor. Then after that, I did the officers course and became a doctor in the army, because that's what happens when you're a doctor in Israel. The army wants doctors. So where do you get the doctors from medical school, which they pick out girls and boys that are doctors, and they go to an officer's course, do some a course that it's basically army medical training, and that's how you get appointed. And that's how I was appointed again to a different unit this time, called the anti-counter-terror unit.
Counterterrorism unit.
Counterterrorism unit.
As a doctor.
As a doctor. And that's where I was appointed when everything happened on the 7th of October. I started there previous 3 years ago, but I was called up on that day.
And you have a specialty in urology. At that time, you also had that, or that's something you went into afterwards?
Urology is also something you don't grow up and say, "Oh, I want to be a urologist." No one, hardly ever happens. That's something you grow up into. I mean, you get exposed to a lot of specialties as a doctor, and you say, "Oh, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm going to be a pediatrician like my father. Going to be ENT. Going to be an orthopedic surgeon. What am I going to do? I mean, there's so many possibilities." So you decide on aim in a profession, and see what things that interest you, and you see what paths as you go forward are available, and you take a decision, like a lot of decisions, 50% chance, 50%, like every decision in life.
Well, it's a concentration that's critical. In other words, it's something that it goes to the critical systems of a person, and that, I guess, makes it the more pressurized, more of the utmost importance that those systems work properly. So the stakes are high in urology.
I think that I used to say to the guys on the team that everything is urology. I mean, we sit in a tank, we sit anywhere, and where they think about, when am I gonna go to the bathroom? I mean, you're sitting for 10, 12 hours, and it's something that's constantly or subconsciously always there. I mean, it was a bit of a joke saying everything is urology. I mean, obviously it isn't, but it's something that people kind of don't talk about. If it's a sexual function, or your problems that are with your genital system, or it's something that you keep indoors. It's not more out in the open, or you can see, like someone that doesn't have an arm, or his face is after explosion, something you see, something you can talk about, and it's out in the open. If there's something internal or undercover, no one could know. You could I could sit here and have a genital problem. No one would know. But if I didn't have an arm, you see it straight away, and this guy has a story. But those are stories that haven't been told, or haven't been out in the open yet. But there are many, and I could say that during the time, a lot of soldiers that did get injured. One of the things that really bothered them was what's going to happen if I get injured, in my reproductive system. I mean, they're young guys, future ahead of them, and something that's quite important to them. And they would say, "I prefer to lose a leg than lose function, function." And something something to think about, something to notice, because a lot of soldiers did get injured
Right.
in that area.
Right. It's something that we don't necessarily focus on, but is always there. In terms of our ability to go to the bathroom, to relieve ourselves. Judaism actually focuses on that. We have a special bracha blessing that we say every time we come out of the bathroom to thank God that He built us with this system where we can digest food and we can remove the waste from our body. It's something that as Jews we recognize all the time. Somebody who's conscious about making those blessings is making them several times a day. And the format of the blessing talks about all the systems and how God created us in a way that allows us to do this. So it's something very, very important and very much with us. Let's go back. I want to get to that point that you raised. It's a very important point, but let's just go back to your life on October 6th. Tell us about your life on October 6th so we can get a context of how your life changed on October 7th.
I think it's not only my life. I think it's the day that everything changed for everyone here in Israel. I think the 6th was a Friday. I was at home. Just went to sleep. There was nothing special at all on Friday. Nothing special whatsoever. And what happened was on Saturday, I was supposed to be on call, the on-call doctor at the hospital. So you have to get up early and go to the hospital and be the on-call doctor. So I got up about around 8. What do we normally do when we get up? Open our phone. So I opened my phone, look at the news, and I see a truck with terrorists in Sderot. And I was like, whoa, this is serious. But I thought, but the army would, deal this. I mean, if it's on the news already, probably army knew this an hour ago. But then I hear a lot of sirens. I wake up my wife and say, look, there are a few sirens. I need to go to the hospital. But, if you hear a siren, just take the kids in. Don't be scared. Don't be woken up by the siren. I just woke you up now.
So you're married and have children?
Yes.
How many children?
I have 2 kids.
Uh-huh.
Eyal and Ronnie, they're twins.
Mm-hmm.
They're about now 8. A wife called Sivan. She's 2 years older than me.
And you live in the Merkaz?
I live today in Modiin.
Oh, you live in Modiin, okay.
I live in the center of Israel.
Right here in Modiin?
Yeah, right here. Okay,
so October 7th, you see that there's something going on in the south, and then what happens?
I'm in the hospital. I go to the hospital, and I sense that something's wrong because I hear a lot of sirens, but I have patients to take care of, so I can't really be on the news all the time and understand. And I just understand, just hearing them every 15 minutes.
Which hospital?
Sheba Hospital.
That's where you're doing your internship? Or your
residency.
Your residency, okay.
Anyway, about 10 o'clock, I go down to the ER, and I sense there's something different going on. Like, there's, one injured person, another injured person. Don't understand yet what the picture is, but then suddenly the head of the ER takes all the doctors in to a room, and he says, look, bring everybody, all the doctors from home now, here. And we're like, open up our eyes, surprised, and say, why? Because what he said was that there were more than hundreds of killed and thousands of injured people, and you need everybody here. So, and then what happened was civilians came with people with, just young people on their arms into the ER. No names, nothing. Started by 5, 10, 15. It started to be really big numbered. And I said to one of the doctors, look, I'll help you, one of the surgeons, because I didn't have a lot of work on my hands at that specific time. And we had to go in with one girl who got shot in the stomach, and she really needed urgent surgery. So I went in with him. As I'm going in, I get calls from the army, like, you need to come in, you need to come in, you need to come in. But I said, look, I'm here with a girl in the operating room. I can't just drop everything.
They were calling you as part of your miluim.
Yeah.
That you need to come now to where? Where were they asking
you
to come
they asked me to come and join the teams that are going down. I didn't know that time where.
Going down south.
Go down south somewhere.
Right.
Because there were more than 23 places that were almost occupied. And so I went into the surgery, and then when I came out, I had about 15 calls unanswered, and by that time I understood that this is big, really big. I had to ask one of my friends to come in and fill for me. Then by the time he came and handed over, I went to the base. I called my wife and said to her, "Look, I've been called up." As I phoned her, she just hung up the phone on me. I think she was overwhelmed with everything. I started hearing the news, like people kidnapped and killed and this and that. And I got to the base.
Where's the base?
Base is near Modiin. It's near Modiin.
And that's a base that you report to whenever you do miluim, you go to that base?
Well, we have a room with all our gear there. So I have a room with my name, a bag that's, as an emergency, I just take the bag. I don't need to, take bits and pieces. But as I got to the room, all the room was empty. They took my gear. Someone took my gear as well, because there was people were called up. Even volunteers came in. They took.
Right.
So I said, look, I need medical equipment, because if I'm going down from my previous experiences, because I was also in the Lebanese war, so I know what to expect, and I know what gear you need. Hope not to use, but. And by about 5:30, a few other people came in, and we went down
5:30
south
in
the evening.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few teams that went before, but by 5:30, we drove down. By that time, I knew where we were going. We're going down to Kibbutz Be'eri, which was tremendously hurt. There was a lot of fighting going down around that area. But driving down was, I said to one of the guys who was sitting next to me, was much younger than me, because I'm almost 38. He was about 26, 5. I said to him, look, this is different. We're going to a different thing. This is not a normal situation, not a normal, units going to somewhere, taking terrorists in and out of Israel. We're going into combat. This could be hours beyond end. As we get to Netivot, I hear like gunfire, like machine gun. Not talking machine gunfire, and I thought we were being shot at on the van. We were going down, so we rushed out the van, put on our gear, but then we realized it was shooting within the city, not on us. And driving towards Be'eri.
Now, when you go. You have a gun with you. Or you just have your medical equipment. You're also carrying.
No. You're equipped from top to bottom: helmet, gun, grenades, medical equipment.
You're a combat soldier who's also.
You're a doctor that goes with the combat
right.
soldiers, so you need to be fully equipped, plus the medical equipment. Then, as driving from Netivot to Be'eri is about 10 kilometers, it looks like eclipse. Like seeing a war from Vietnam War,
Apocalypse.
Yeah. You see fields on fire. You see cars burned. You see bodies on the road. You see factories starting, fetching fire from nearby, from the field. Everything's full of smoke. You see no one around. It looks like going into hell.
And how many people are you with at this point?
About 9.
In a van. Mm-hmm. All soldiers.
All soldiers. So we get into the road towards the kibbutz. A lot of forces were already there. And as imagine if you go to the beach, you hear background of waves of sound. The sound there was gunfire. That's the background sound. It's not a tape. It's constantly going on. Explosion, gunfire, explosion. Like speaking, you need to kind of speak, be quiet until there's an explosion's off, speak again. A lot of chaos there. A lot of there's no electricity, so it's all dark. Everybody with torches. You want to look at something, you have to light it up, and it's very inconvenient. No one knows exactly what's going on. and we start to think how we're going to take out the civilians out. And from my perspective, my angle, I need to look who's wounded, where they're wounded, where to treat them, how to evacuate them. And we start getting that overhand. And we start going into the kibbutz. We go in with teams. We ask one of the members of the kibbutz, where are the people? Are the people still in there? And he said, yes. There's some injured. There's some, somebody doesn't know what's going on with them. We need to get them out. So we went in a few times. We took out a few children,
And the kibbutz is at this point is still under attack by terrorists.
Oh, yes.
So there's fighting going on in the kibbutz. There are terrorists there in the kibbutz, and you're coming in now to try to get the injured people out of there.
Yeah, you go in with a team. You go in with a team because you need to be, because if you're confronted, you need to, fight it. So we go in and try to get into the house where we're been told and bring the people out. So we managed to do that a bit.
Somebody's instructing you that in this house there are people that need attention, and you're basically directed to go into a specific house there.
Yeah, there's a guy from the kibbutz that stayed and helped because he knows the kibbutz, perfect. So he knows where to go, how to go, what their names are. So because people were afraid, like we knocked on a shelter door and said we're the army, and she said prove it, like we don't believe you. So we had to say, something that they identify ourselves. And he helped us.
What did you say?
Well, we said something about the kibbutz, something that only people from the kibbutz would know. Yeah. So she kind of she said that's afterwards, she said, that's the only reason I opened up because, because they were there for 12 hours, God knows.
Although we know now that the terrorists also knew things about the kibbutz that only people from the kibbutz would know.
At that point, we didn't know that, and we had to do something.
Right.
It worked anyway. As we went out, I started to see a lot of injured soldiers because fighting was going on, and started to add up. And I'm telling you, there's tens of soldiers that were just one after the other, and we were about 10 doctors out there. And each one of us was hands-on for hours. Not talking about 1 hour, 2 hours. Talking about hours.
Who was the first patient that you confronted, that you treated? First of all, you're in a situation where you see tens of soldiers and also civilians injured.
Well, most of the civilians were more exhausted, very minor injuries. Soldiers had gunshots. And there were, they could lose their lives.
And how do you know when you come to the situation like that? How do you know where to go first?
Well, we stood out, 10 doctors, with a bit of space between us. And as they brought out soldiers, like for instance, 5 soldiers come out. Which unit they're from? Oh, they're from the Navy SEALs. All right, where are you from? We're from Duvdevan. So they go first to the doctors of their units. But if they're hands-on and there's another 2 soldiers that need to be cared, so I took care and another doctor took care. We didn't care where they're from, and we did what we would do for anyone. But when soldiers started to come out from my unit, from my team, I obviously had to be the first to bring them in.
Your team, meaning the K-9 division team, or
no, the counter-terror unit.
Oh, from the counter-terror unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was 2 injuries that I remember very, very well. One guy was shot in the chest, and he had blood accumulated in all his chest cavity. He couldn't breathe. He was very pale, and he, I saw him, and I saw his saturation is decreased. Saturation is when your blood oxygen goes low. That means you're not breathing properly, and if you're not breathing properly, that's not good news. And I thought, okay, this guy we have to open his chest. We need to drain the blood from his chest so his lung can expand so blood doesn't close off. So that's something I didn't think I would ever do in my life, especially not field, dark, gun shots around. That's what I took the decision and did that.
You opened up his chest on the
Well,
spot.
on the side, it's called chest tube. On the side, you do like a cut of about 3-4 centimeters. Put in a tube, and all the blood drained out, about a liter. And he slowly could breathe. The guy could. And we did another one on the other side because we didn't know what was going on. And then we said to the evacuation, I said to them, he needs to go in a helicopter, straight away. He needs not driven. He needs a helicopter. We managed to stabilize him a bit there. In about 20 minutes, he was in the hospital. And amazingly, he was on his feet after 3 days.
He got to the hospital in
He got to the
20 minutes.
hospital with those tubes. Apparently, it did help him, breathe properly. They took him into the OR, and they just closed a few blood vessels that he was bleeding from. They left the tube in. And after 3 days, he went home. That was amazing. I couldn't believe it. Another injury I remember very well was a younger guy, a sniper. That was more scary because he was within the kibbutz. The other guy was brought out. He was alone, or maybe with another guy. So we had to go in very fast because they said he's alone, he's injured. They were afraid he might just get killed or kidnapped. So by that time, just to get you on track, I was awake about 24 hours. All in all, I was there 40 hours, but I was about 24 hours. But we had to do what we had to do, and we went in. Again, dark. We don't know where we are. Don't know exactly where he is. There was one soldier or two that could kind of direct us where he is. So we had to go with them. I remember as we walk through the houses, burnt houses, all the plants broken, shattered. I have to say that there's second to none of the intensity, the masses, and the gruesome sights that you see or deal with on that day. It's just kind of understand that this is something totally different than what I've ever seen or think I would experience in life. Anyway, we got to the guy. He was on the floor. He was shot. He was alive, but he was shot in the chest as well. I remember when he was on the floor, it was in front of the house. There was a window. It was broken. I don't know why I remember this image, but I remember looking into the house. I was seeing a charger in the wall and the carpet just slightly burnt. Don't know why I remember that image, but I just think to myself, a few hours ago, there was a family on that carpet, and there's just an iPhone charger on the wall.
A typical scene in a house that you would.
Yeah, it's not not in a trench.
Right.
Anyway, I look at the guy and I look at his wounds, and I thought he won't make it, to be honest, because the bullet wound went out of his stomach, and I thought it went through the diaphragm. If it goes through the diaphragm, it can't go up and down. He can't breathe. Can't breathe. You don't live. But he was speaking. He was talking. He could give a full sentence, and that's very important when you do evaluate an injured soldier or anyone if they could talk. Because if someone can talk, you can take a breath. If you can take a breath, that means you're in somewhere else. And someone can't talk, that means something's obstructing him. Anyway, we had to take him out really fast as well because I didn't know at that point how long or exactly, because, again, it's hard to evaluate in that situation. You guys took him up. We put him into one of the vehicles, drove out. As we were driving out, he started to kind of decrease his awareness. So I had to speak to him,
You're riding with him.
I'm riding with him, with another medic.
Were you the 9 doctors that you were together the whole time, or you split up into different places?
There were 9 doctors from different places. As I said, we were always hands-on on someone. So we didn't really work together. We were next to each other. Sometimes we give a hand, or someone said, I need morphine, I need ketamine, I need something, does anyone have? So I just, so I went with things in my pocket because I didn't want to always go back and forth to the bag and get them out. Just my pocket, here's this, here's that, here's a glove, here's...
So you're riding with him at this point, trying to get him out of the...
We got him out. Okay. We got him out. We put a chest tube. Because in a bullet wound, you don't know what's going on in the chest, and if he's and he was pale as well. He lost blood. I mean, you have to maximize your treatment on the spot. But as at that point, amazingly, there was not a lot of injured soldiers for that specific 20 minutes. So I just said, look, just put him in a helicopter and bring him off instead of treating him here. So we did what we did. On the spot, put him on the helicopter. He arrived in the Sheba Hospital. A friend of mine who earlier went in for me, I texted him and said, look, just make sure he gets in and give me a text because I want to know if he makes it. And after about an hour, he said he's out of the surgery room. He's okay. He's in the intensive care unit, but he's okay. And then I said, well, what was his injury? He said, well, he got a bullet wound in his chest, but it went out. It didn't hit the diaphragm. It hit the stomach, like a bit below. So he bled, but it didn't obstruct his breathing.
Right.
So, and then I said, okay. So I kind of understood what was going on with him, and I was happy. And as I was saying about that point, seeing the soldiers going in and out, bringing in people, and I didn't felt really down in that day. I felt really amazed of seeing the best of our soldiers doing what they did.
Well, first of all, you on the spot. You already were notified about 2 successful treatments where you actually save people's lives. You're hearing about that on the spot. I mean, the first guy you mentioned, maybe you heard about later that he was able to be discharged from the hospital. But the second guy, you're saying you got a text right away that you basically saved his life. Well, you and your team.
Kind of, yes. I mean, because I knew where we was going because I asked specifically to go there, and they listened to me. And I, you could text someone today. You're not, you have reception. And
how did you know that he was still able to breathe?
Well, I asked him his name. He said to me his name.
So he could talk. So.
One of the things when you learn medicine or at least trauma, there's like a scenario of like a burning area, someone with a fire. Sometimes fire causes edema in your vocal cords, so you can't breathe, you can't talk, or you're very hoarse. You can't make a sound. That's a sign that something's wrong with his vocal cords. If someone doesn't mean necessarily it won't happen another 20 minutes, but on the spot, he was conscious, and he was able to fill in sentences, not one, not two. So I could evaluate him how I could evaluate. It was very limited, but it was something. It was something I could hold on to. Something I could think in my head. What will I do the next step? Not ventilate him there. Take him out to a more secure area, and maybe if something happens, I have more people to help me, because doing it there is even 10 times more dangerous.
Right. So you're making a decision with each patient. Should I treat here on the spot? Should I move him to a place that is a little bit more secure, or should I get him out of here on a helicopter to the hospital?
Well, first thing, you when you do like in your head the triage, you say, okay, what did I do first? First, the best thing is to get him out of there. First thing, because you're in danger, he's in danger. The second thing is to understand, do I treat him here, or do you have the availability to evacuate him? If I don't have to, let's say, another half an hour, helicopter comes or a vehicle, so I have half an hour to treat him and do my best. But if there's something available, I won't lose time on doing something on the spot, but evacuate him, because getting to the hospital is the best chance anyone has.
Mm.
Um,
Are there helicopters waiting around to take people? I mean, what was the scene there in terms of the evacuation
I have
process?
to say that I have to give credit for the evacuation teams of the Air Force. It's called the 669 or 669 unit. They're the airborne evacuation team. They did 150 evacuations that evening. I don't think in a year, maybe I think a normal soldier would do 150 evacuations in, let's say, a decade. They did it in one night, and they went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
All by helicopter?
Well, they put them on a jeep, and then from the helicopters were a bit back, and like in a field because they couldn't be next to us, and they took back and forth all night, all day, all night.
Jeep to the helicopter to
Jeep
the
to
hospital.
the helicopter,
And back again.
Yeah, because helicopter is very quick. I mean, I would say the hospital in Beersheba will take you about 6 minutes. Sheba will take you 25. Das and Jerusalem will take you about 25. So it's quick. It's it's not very far, especially by helicopter. Doing by vehicle could take you 2 hours, especially when the mess that was around. Those things you learn, first of all, but you have to also decide who's more severe injury to deserve a helicopter. Not like if someone got shot in the hand and had a tourniquet on his hand, he doesn't need a helicopter. He could just sit, be stabilized, fluids, painkillers. He could be evacuated in another 2 hours. He'll be all right. He won't enjoy himself,
right? But
he will be all right. He's not a life and death decision.
You mentioned before morphine. Now you're mentioning painkillers. Were there doctors there, anesthesiologists who were able to administer anesthesia when you had to do procedures on the spot, or even painkillers for someone who was in tremendous pain? Were those people with you as well?
Well, every doctor has to know this, especially in combat. Obviously, an anesthesiologist to ventilate someone or do an intubation, he's more skilled than a dermatologist. I don't know the professionals of all this because we were all in uniform. I didn't know their names. I didn't know anybody's name at all. So I myself, I know how to give painkillers and to do this. I haven't done it a lot because that's my profession, but I know that theoretically what to do. And luckily we didn't need to do that to anyone over there. But
the guy that you opened up his chest on both sides wasn't under anesthesia?
Well, no, we gave him painkillers. We gave him something called fentanyl, which is very, very. You don't feel a lot. Ketamine is something good because it makes you don't remember. So if you cut someone open, you won't remember it. It also gives you sedates the pain, but also you won't remember what was done to him.
And though you're able to administer that on the spot.
Yes, of course. The dosage. You don't overdose someone. One of the things I had to remind myself while doing this is if someone's not really unconscious or his conscious is like vague, giving him a painkiller will make his conscious even more decreased. So is it because of the injury or is it because of the medication? So I had to put that in my mind. So I had to kind of get a good glimpse of him, how he is before I sedate him. But on the other hand, there's not a lot of time to do that. You don't have, we're sitting here in a studio with lights and a cup of water. There, I think you're on the ground. There's rocks and stones and dust. Dark. You're sweaty. You have a helmet. Your lighting is a torch, which is not the best. That's what you got. Mm-hmm. That's his best chance. You're his best chance. After you, there's nothing. You have to understand that. It's you, and after you, there's.
Right. So what you're saying is that the anesthesia not only kills the pain or controls the pain during the procedure, but also affects the trauma afterwards because the patient doesn't remember what happened to him.
It's called amnesia.
Hmm.
Yeah, because pain. One of the things that you learn, and you, well, I kind of, it's within my blood that someone who gets injured, he might be okay. He won't lose his arm, won't lose his leg, but he will remember the pain. That would traumatize him. Should I go back into combat? Should I do this? Should I even play soccer? Because my leg, my this, my that. He that's one of the things that in research saw that pain, it causes post-trauma. So if you reduce pain, you reduce post-trauma.
Right.
I know, say reduce pain. No one wants to feel pain.
Or the sight of his chest being open and cut open would also produce trauma.
I think he hardly remembers that. When I spoke to him later, after a month, I saw him. He was on his feet. He looked like a new person. The funny thing is that I didn't even know his name when I was doing all this to him. I asked one of the other soldiers, "What's this guy's name? I don't even know his name. I never met him before." And then they told me about him, and I gave him his number. And after 2 weeks, I kind of see how is he doing, and I said, and his parents wanted to speak to me and see me, and he said, "Look, I don't really remember what went on. I remember something, but it didn't kind of affect him in a way that, like, I remember it or the guy next to me remembers it, because we remember exactly every second what happened with him." He oddly.
Right. And how do you deal with the trauma of, because assuming doctors dealing with someone who's in intense pain, or who is lying in a pool of blood, or whose chest is being open, how do you deal with that? You know, after the fact, how are you dealing with it today?
Well, honestly, I'll say this honestly. My day-to-day work in a hospital is not a calm setting of, it's not a calm setting in an office where you go out, in and out. It's stressful. And you deal with stressful situations with people, injured, sometimes dying, cancer, deal with families, young people. Um, so you kind of go through that in your day to day. Not every day, but a lot of the times. And you kind of build a kind of sort of an approach to deal with these things. And I think you're very focused on what you're doing, and you don't sink into other things, I think just maybe that's also the way I'm built and trained. Um, but I don't feel that it affected me in a way that I feel, I don't know, saddened or depressed or scared. I actually feel overwhelmed, like, seeing these soldiers, like I said before, the best of our soldiers doing what they did, sacrificing the sacrifice they took. And it felt like a privilege for me to be there to help or be beside them in this historical moment. And it made me feel proud of them, and the people around me. Because, and that doesn't make that, until this day I feel that way, because we also because of the successes we had, it made us also feel, it uplifted us in the morale, which was also I can't go away from it. It also has an effect, and that's how I look at it.
How many people did you save on that day?
Save. It's not like I saved someone from drowning. I think all in all, I think about between 13 and 17 soldiers I treated or evacuated or helped. And those two were the most severe that I had to deal with, that I remember. The others were, I would say, moderate injuries, which were treatable, but needed care. Because, I mean, someone has a bullet wound in his arm and doesn't get treated, he could lose blood and become severe. or give like not like a moderate painkiller, like something like heavy dose. You need to monitor it because you don't want things going around. People don't know what they're doing, or I would say about between that number.
And you stayed in touch with some of those people afterwards to follow up on their situation? Besides the two, you mentioned the two.
Well, the two I had to that were more important to me to
because you made the call, you made that critical call on what to do on the spot.
I mean,
that ended up saving their lives.
It's a matter of minutes. They could lose their lives. Really, a matter of minutes. So it's something it's something big. I mean, like when you arrive at a scene or you're at the scene, and suppose we couldn't enter the kibbutz another 15 minutes. Who knows what would happen? Maybe we'll lose more blood. Maybe kidnapped. Maybe killed. Who knows? The guy that was taken out. Maybe if I dealt with another soldier that time, I couldn't treat him, or it was all delayed. Who knows what have happened? So I didn't really stay with touch because first of all we were in a loop of from place to place. Sleep wasn't sleep, but those two kind of I tried, I managed. The others I heard about. From other people, but I didn't. Not in person.
Were there any that there was nothing you could do? You tried to treat and
no, there wasn't. For me, there wasn't a situation like that. There was something that someone called me on the phone. A friend of mine was in Givati, another unit. He phoned me and he asked me, "What look, Ari, I have this and that. What would you say?" That's the situation. I really couldn't do very much, but
ask for your advice on the phone.
Yeah, that was one situation, but I couldn't. I couldn't really do the make a difference. Maybe it did make a difference, but I don't know.
Right.
But there wasn't something I could say like lost someone or.
No. So you were in Kibbutz Be'eri for 40 hours straight?
Well, if I got up at Saturday at 8, woke my wife and told her what I did. And then at Sunday, that's a day later, at 9:00 in the evening, everything almost finished. So I would say, yeah, that's about 40 hours. I don't know.
And at that point, other people came to replace you, or you had finished there was nothing else to do in the kibbutz at that point?
No. People came in and replaced us. We went down to the south of the Gaza Strip to another kibbutz called Nir Yitzchak. We just had to put our heads down. After 40 hours, people were dirty, tired. We had a few people from our teams that got killed. We had quite a few injured. We had to kind of get ourselves together, eat something. And we just went into the kibbutz was empty, so we just went into the kindergarten to just put the gear down, just put our heads on the floor, basically, for a few hours just to get up and understand what we just been through. Then that was basically the whole. And I think after about 4 days, Wednesday, that's the first time we actually changed socks or had a wash or anything, or had like a proper something to eat after 4 days.
But so what were you doing from Sunday evening until, let's say, Wednesday?
Well, there were a few other terrorists that were hiding around in the orchards, bushes, various places. And each time one of them popped up somewhere in there, we had to jump and confront it. Not only us, other units. So we had to after all this happened in the days after, until it was all clear. So we need to do that. Then we were still there because no one really knew what was going to happen, or there was going to be another raid, or no one knew.
So at this point, you're in Kibbutz Nir Yitzchak, kind of transitioning from.
We're holding that area.
You're transitioning from being a doctor to being a combat soldier at this point.
Well, I'm still the doctor because if we get no, that's my role. My hat is the doctor first and foremost.
Did you confront any? Were you confronted by any terrorists during this time that you had to?
Twice, but I wasn't alone. You're never alone, so it's just by chance. Twice, but they didn't make it. We did.
Mhm.
um,
And what about while you're performing treatment on the soldiers that you were helping? Was there gunfire going on at the time? Were you under fire? Were other people? Is a scene where you're treating a patient and other people are holding off terrorists by gunfire?
well, most of them were within the kibbutz, in the houses, hiding. I mean, you have to remember that when the army comes, they're not big heroes. They're scared of us. They are, and they hide. They just pop up and hide and run. So they were hiding from, and here and there they were trying to put a hit or two, but when we took care of people, we take them a few steps back out of the kibbutz, out of the gates, so we have a bit of light,
Hmm.
we have a bit of area, and safer. Doesn't mean we don't know really how safe it is because we don't know if someone's hiding somewhere else. We don't know, but it's safer.
So from Sunday to Wednesday, tell me about what you were doing during that time, Sunday evening to Wednesday.
Um,
Besides getting a few hours of rest and maybe eating something.
well, we try to understand. Well, we first wanted to, tell our families that we were okay. Um, we were talking a lot to each other, you know, um, getting our gear back in, let's say, ready. We had one of the, not the chief of staff, I think the deputy of chief of staff came down and spoke to all of us, and he was telling us, what's forward. I mean, what was going on there? That time, we were saying, look, there's a war. There's a war started. We're going to be here for 2 months. We were all looking at each other like, 2 months. What do you mean 2 months? I thought this was going to be for a few days. So we were a bit, shocked, and we had to process this in some way. We had to really shift our minds from what was going on Saturday, Friday, that was 6th of October. What, 3 days later, we're in a war for 2 months in the army? I mean, look, we have jobs, we have families, what's going on? So that was, we had to let it sink in. And like I said, we had to jump here and there for, all sorts of calls. We were reassessing the damages around the kibbutz, looking for maybe survivors, maybe we didn't know.
Were you in touch with Sheba Hospital at this time?
With the doctors from my department.
Right, because you're treating people on the site, on the front line, but there are tons of injured people being rushed to the hospital where they're being treated in the hospital by people that you work with. So it's kind of like it's a battle in the hospital on the front line, and some of your people are being sent to the hospital.
Well, the hospital, a lot of doctors were called up to the army, so the hospital was half empty.
Who's treating them, and who's treating people?
You need the doctors at the hospital because the people that be treated on the field need to be, treated by doctors in the hospital. I mean, you need them as well. I was in touch with a few anesthesiologists because I took a few tips from them. Like if I am in a really bad situation, what's the best thing to do, and do it quicker. So I spoke to a female doctor, which I'm good friends with. She said, phone me anytime. So I got a few with her. The doctors in my team, my department, they were more asking about me than me for them.
When did you eventually get home?
I think after about 12 days, I went home. It felt like 3 months, and the whole and I was trying to understand. I mean, my kids were jumping on me, and my wife. They were all very. I mean, how it looked from the outside seemed. People were very. I think scared. I mean, that's the word. They were very, like their backs to the wall. They felt really didn't know what to feel.
So they're happy that you're home
Yeah,
and safe.
yeah. And then I went back. Then we went up to the West Bank.
How long after you came home did you have to go back?
I just came home for an evening.
And then the next day you went to DABRU?
Yeah. I came back about 8 o'clock in the evening and stayed about until 8 o'clock in the morning, and went back. Then we went up to Jenin area, which they're not very good friends of ours as well. Because we're all the fronts of Israel, all the borders were very, very uptight, because that time they were thinking that everyone's going to come on us, so we need to be first to hold it back. And our mission there was to, first of all, bring in a lot of terrorists from that area that planned, I would say, similar things.
I mean, you were arresting terrorists.
Yeah,
so that now you're moving.
There were two aims. One is to stop it, and the second aim was to have accumulate enough material. I would say material for negotiation to bring back hostages. So if you have 700 or 1,000 or 2,000 terrorists, it could be a base for negotiation. That was the thinking. So a lot of units went to bring in a lot of people that planned similar things and a base for negotiations. And that's what's going on now, I think, in ways that we don't all know, because it's not all been, it's undercovered. But I think that's one. And
intelligence. I mean, you're getting intelligence from the people that you're bringing in.
Yeah. We every day. I haven't done that, I think, for about 37 days straight, like every night. Like you sleep about 4 hours a day for 37 days, because you're in and out, getting intelligence, going there, and going in there is not for an hour, because they don't like when the army goes in. They're prepared. They're throwing things at you, shooting, running. It's hostile, really hostile. And then we went back into Gaza. There was a ceasefire, and then I think, I don't know, a week.
During the first deal, the first hostage deal.
Then we went back to Nir Yitzchak, where we were there. Then the ceasefire stopped. There had a lot of rockets. And then we went back in for a few days. We started to go into this. The army was already in the Gaza Strip. Then I got injured in my ankle. Something really a bit stupid. Because after a few days we went out just to refresh. We were doing like a training session, and we were running. And then I sprained my ankle really bad. There was like a hole in the ground, but I could put my shoe on, and I couldn't go back in. And they went back in. So I said, look, I'll stay here. I'll still stay here, but I can't, danger myself or danger anyone else by, lagging back. So I was there. And after a few days, I think about 2 weeks, we were all discharged. At the end of January. So.
And when you go back now to your regular practice, or now I know you're studying for an exam as part of your residency, how do you transition from the excitement and the adrenaline of the battle scene, of treating people in the battle scene, to everyday situation in a hospital, studying for exams, your regular life? You're a husband, you're a father. How do you transition between those two worlds?
For me, it's easy. For some reason, it is. I think in the beginning, we were more in touch, all of us, messaging and, how things are, how are you going? We're meeting a bit.
Meaning your team, your miluim team.
Yeah, we were meeting a bit, on good terms. We went out for a drink. We went out for, just to speak a bit. And then everybody gradually went back to their thing. And I didn't find it hard to concentrate or go back to work or something. It didn't catch me in a way that, it holds me back. I have no problem talking about it and telling the story. And I know that few people do, but that's just me.
I want to touch on, we have to wrap up soon, but I want to touch on something that's very important, and that's the fact that we, the civilians in Israel, are focused on the casualties and the numbers of soldiers that have been killed, but you're actually exposed to a whole other area, which is people that are injured, severely injured, as a urologist. Tell us, give us a little bit of a flavor of what some of these people are going through, are going to have to live with, either for the rest of their lives, or whether there's some treatment that can help these injured soldiers recover, urology based injuries that are severe, and what can be done to help them in the future.
Okay. I'll talk a bit in a professional language. I'll give you an example. Let's say a spinal cord injury. When you hit the spinal cord, it hits nerves. Those nerves go down from the spine downwards to your limbs and genitals, bladder system, defecation system. When that's hurt or disturbs, it's something that a normal person or someone who's not injured controls. He's driving the car, needs to go to the bathroom. He controls it. He doesn't dribble in the car or walking the sidewalk. He could think, okay, I need to go, but he can go when he needs to. Those soldiers, I'm talking about young guys, I'm not talking about 98-year-old, elderly that are disabled, or they lose their function. They don't control their urination system, defecation system, erections, and something it turns their life upside down day to day, day in, day out. It's something they take with them all the time. I mean, losing a leg, for instance, is terrible, but you can have a prosthesis, you could have there's something you could kind of live with. The other part is something that it's very, very hard to live with. About treatments, some of them, won't help, or they help for a time, and then they stop helping. When soldiers are equipped, they're armed, they have a chest shield, but nothing for the genitals and legs. So if you get hit, it's very easy to get hit there. And it's something very devastating, also mentally, very, very devastating. Because, imagine a soldier, 23 years old, he wants to get married. He's a guy, it's his, manhood, find a woman, go with a guy that, she can't have kids with, they can't have a normal couple relationship. It's something that they will find out later on, because at the point they don't understand. They say, "Oh, okay, it'll be okay," or people saying to him, "It'll be okay. You're alive. You're this. You're that." But the quality of life is really, really, really down. And when they come in, in wheelchairs because they can't walk, and they're not bothered about walking at all. They don't even talk about it. They don't, they would say, and some of them, when they get their function back or partially, it's like the world for them. It's the control, their self-esteem, their who they are. And that's something, people don't see. They don't really see, because if someone can't walk, they could say, oh, he can't walk. If he can't, reproduce, they can't know that. They wouldn't know that. They wouldn't talk to him, or he himself wouldn't even talk about it. Something that is like in the blur, it's behind the scenes. But we see the behind the scenes. And behind the scenes, there are a lot of actors.
Are there any treatments or any kind of research done or that is in the process now that can help rejuvenate those processes and that function going forward?
It depends on the injury. It depends how severe it is. Depends what, I mean, that's basically the core. Because if it's something that is you could work with, like put in a prosthesis, put in, like, inject something that would stimulate. I don't know, urinate with catheterization. I have something, a tube, permanent tube in. There are things that could be done. Not everybody's suitable. But that also has a price, because those things don't always work, and you have to go through surgery, through treatment. You have to. It's a set of I'm going to talk about young people here, that you have to go through surgeries and be admitted, and go through the whole mental process of this. Like, it's something that people only in the very, very old age go through, and they suddenly have to. They were 2 weeks ago, they were on the top of the world. Now they're basically in their minds, nothing, or I wouldn't say nothing, but, really look at their fellow members, friends, go forward with their lives, and they're like stuck.
Our heart has to go out to all these people that are suffering from their injuries. I want to end on just one positive note, and you come from a family of doctors. How did you feel coming back to your father and other people, that the sense of pride they must have had in you for coming back from this mission, and for, doing something with your life and helping people that most of us, can never dream of doing? How did you feel going back to, your wife, your father, your people that are proud of you? Did they express that to you, how proud they are of you? Because I'm sitting here now, I'm very proud of you. So they must also be.
Okay. My parents are not alive. My mother died in 2019. My dad, 2021.
So you're keeping their memory
But
alive.
I have to say, while I was hands-on these people, my father was in my mind. The voice was in my head, and I knew, because my father was a big Zionist. He came from England to Israel, and I knew that he would, it would mean the world for him, to know what I was doing. And after all this, all the friends of my parents, they said the same thing. They would say, he's not proud. He's over proud. And my mother as well. And, my family, they live in England. And, it's something that some people maybe find it hard to really understand, because the difference between what I experienced and what people saw in the news is huge. But there would be, I know there would be, because he was always very proud of me in being in the army and becoming a doctor, and a doctor in the army for, someone is something for him. I know it would be one of his best successes, I think.
That must give you a lot of strength. And thank you very much for sharing your story with us, Ari. And we're proud of you.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time. And hopefully we'll receive good news in the future that our army is successful and continues to be successful. And thanks very much.
Thank you.